Greetings YouTube viewers and welcome to another video on the Ian Bullock channel. Today it's Thursday the 1st of June 2023 and we find ourselves at Lowestoft, Suffolk in East Anglia, the most easterly point of the UK, and we're looking down from the clifftops here on this beautiful golden sandy beach. I've mentioned before in my videos that I used to spend parts of my childhood over here in sunny Lowestoft because I had grandparents who lived in Carlton Road and other family members around the Kirkley area. Now, one of the places I used to really enjoy visiting in Lowestoft was Kensington Gardens, this little park up here on the cliff tops, which I'd like to focus on in today's video. So yes, I have some really happy memories of visiting Kensington Gardens, and the photograph I've just popped in here was me aged around 6 or 7, so that would have been about 1969 or 1970. And the reason I really enjoyed Kensington Gardens, and people of a certain age will know what I'm talking about, is because there used to be an attraction in this park which is no longer there, back in the golden age of my childhood, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Kensington Gardens were formally opened to the public on the 8th of June 1922, 101 years ago, and actually last summer they celebrated their centenary. It's thought that the park was created on the site of a former rubbish tip, land which was bought by Lowestoft Council in 1914 for the grand sum of £3,800. Now, initially, it was used to grow crops for the 1914-18 war effort, but then it was developed into a park by businessmen Selwyn Humphrey and Arthur Tuttle as part of a scheme to provide work for the town's unemployed men. Now, you might be looking at this video of Kensington Gardens and saying, why on earth is there some huge empty concrete crater right in front of the cafe that looks like some kind of launch pad from a NASA rocket site? And actually, if you're someone of my age, maybe in your 50s, 60s, 70s, you will remember that back in the day, this circular pond used to be a rather fantastic boating lake with little electric motorboats on it. Now, back in my childhood, this was one of the very highlights of visiting Lowestoft, and there was always great excitement whenever it was suggested that we should go to the boating lake at Kensington Gardens and have a go on those fabulous little boats. I believe that back in 1922, when the park first opened, this area used to be a bandstand, but it was subsequently turned into the boating lake, which was really a focal point for visitors to Kensington Gardens for many years. So this is it, folks. This is what I've been talking so excitedly about in the video so far, and actually even looking back at these old photographs brings back so many happy memories for me. I'm really hoping that there are a number of people out there watching this video who, like me, can also remember with great fondness the excellent electric boating lake at Kensington Gardens. Now, this scheme was designed by the River Board Chief Engineer S.W. Mobbs, and it was a slightly curious affair because unlike the big empty circular pond we have today in 2023, back in its heyday this boating lake was divided up using man-made islands covered in rockeries and pretty flowers. And the idea was that there were 15 small electric motorboats which could be hired, and parents and their children could happily weave around the different canals and islands. What really sticks in my mind about the boating lake at Lowestoft was the way in which the little motorboats were powered. Now, the whole boating lake was covered in a kind of wooden structure, and on the roof there was what I can only describe as sort of chicken wire, like a mesh fencing that went right the way across. Now, this was powered electrically, and on the back of each boat there was a pole with a piece of metal on the top, and that made contact with the fencing across the roof, and that's how they got their power. And I seem to remember you used to be able to see little sparks coming off them as each boat made its way around the lake. So you can understand that this lovely boating lake was incredibly popular over very many years and became the centrepiece, the jewel in the crown of Kensington Gardens. At night it was lit up by hundreds of fairy lights. During the daytime, children would queue for a very long time to take their turn in the boats, and families would gather in their deck chairs right around the perimeter of the lake in the sunshine. It's just a shame really that after that golden era things were to end so sadly, because by the 1970s the boats here at Lowestoft were leaking and the electricity system was faulty. Now in 1974 they were replaced by battery electric boats, which somehow were not really as popular, and those were later replaced by canoes, which are used today. The central islands in the boating lake were removed, and now the whole thing is just one big circular pond. I'm almost 60 now, but I can still remember the great sense of excitement whenever I was told that we were going to Kensington Gardens and I could go on the electric motorboats. As far as I can remember, there was a man or a couple of men who used to wear rubber waders and stood almost permanently in the water of the boating lake, helping people on and off the boats. I think they might have had some kind of a system with a clock and tokens to work out which boat needed to come in first after its allotted 10, 15, 20 minutes. So I think the whole idea of this boating lake originally was that they were dodgem motorboats, a bit like dodgem cars. They were called scooter boats, and each one had quite a lot of padding around it so that if two boats collided, not too much damage was done. But I think bumping into each other was something that was actually actively discouraged. I don't think I used to do that anyway. I just liked sailing around all the little islands and meeting my friends, maybe trying to chase them or maybe trying to hide from them back around each of the islands. Apparently back in the day, some lads used to stand and watch the boats to see which ones were the fastest. So for example, if boats number 5 and number 12 were the fastest, these lads would actually give up their place in the queue specifically so that they could get those boats. I think the reality though was quite different, because once you got in the boat, they all tended to go at pretty much the same speed. So the colour photograph that we're looking at here really for me captures what the boating lake looked like back in my childhood. It was always such a magical and special place. Now I don't remember queuing up for the fastest boats, but what I do remember doing back in my day was making sure that when I needed to come back and my time in the boat had run out, I used to make sure I went right the way round at the very back of the boating lake and hid behind an island. When the men called my boat, I made sure that I went as slowly as possible back to the station to ensure that I got the maximum value out of my time on the little motorboats. They were really happy days. Unfortunately, of course, all good things come to an end. And I'm going to date this photograph around the early to mid-1970s, because if you look closely at the top of the picture, you'll notice that the original electric mesh fencing has been removed from the canopy. And that's, I think, because these little boats must have been the battery-powered boats that replaced the original 1930s electric scooter boats. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to June 2023. Now, unfortunately, on the day I visited Kensington Gardens, there was no water in the boating lake, and I think by the time you watch this video, we will have water in there. I think they have problems with the pond leaking, and it's probably a constant battle trying to make sure that the thing is in good working order. It's definitely a good thing that this boating lake in 2023 is still being used and is still being looked after. But I can't help thinking it's such a shame that something that used to be so popular and such a focal point of Kensington Gardens has been allowed to just kind of fall to pieces over the years, and it's been systematically dismantled to what we have here today. These photographs were very kindly provided to me by a local lady called Karen High, and I wanted to show them to you because I wanted you to see what the boating lake at Kensington Gardens looks like when it actually has some water in it. Also those little yellow canoes, which are the boats that youngsters use nowadays. I'm sure they're absolutely fine and great fun, but I'm not sure that the youngsters today realise what the boating lake used to be like in the days when I was a lad back in the 1960s and 70s. Such a shame that is. Having looked back at all that lovely Lowestoft local history, the question now, I suppose, is can we ever recapture the magic of the past and somehow recreate the original electric boating lake here at Kensington Gardens? Let's face it, the local authorities here in East Suffolk are very unlikely to have money to splash out on replacing the boating lake. But I'm wondering whether or not something like this might qualify for heritage lottery funding or some other kind of grant. Let's not forget, of course, that the original Kensington Gardens was created using the talents of local unemployed men. Now, without liking to get all Daily Mail on you, I'm sure that there might be some local unemployed chaps here in the Lowestoft area who'd be prepared to roll up their sleeves and pitch in to help us recreate the golden era of the boating lake at Kensington Gardens. Here on the coast of Suffolk and also Norfolk, there are several companies operating in the field of renewable energy, and I'm just wondering whether some of them might like to come on board as part of a green scheme to get the electric boating lake back up and running, but in a form that's fit for 2023 and beyond. Maybe the companies could ask their staff to help out with the scheme. Maybe the little boats could operate using rechargeable electric batteries, and the whole thing could be one big green scheme that helped the community and also helped the planet. I just think we need some creative thinking. Before I end this video, I'd really like to pay tribute to the Friends of Kensington Gardens who put an awful lot of voluntary time and effort into maintaining the park here and also enhancing it. And you'll have noticed during this video how lovely the gardens are looking thanks to all their efforts. I really hope you've enjoyed my little tour of Kensington Gardens here on the clifftops of Lowestoft, and also my stroll down memory lane with the boating lake. If you've got any comments, views or memories, please add them to the comments below here on YouTube. This is Ian Bullock and it's Thursday the 1st of June 2023. Thank you so much for watching this video.